Hey, how are you? We are dealing with Algebra 2 still. We're in section 2.4 and we're writing linear equations. Please observe your assignment for this section here. Make sure and copy it down so that you can work through the problems accordingly after the lesson. All right, so we only have two vocabulary terms and I think we actually talked about one of them before. So today we're going to be talking about writing equations of a line in different forms. We already have one form. You guys remember the form standard form? Standard form of a line. So standard form of a line, you write the equation ax plus by is equal to c, where a and b and also c are elements of the integers. So each of these bad boys have to be an integer with one little caveat. A has to be greater than 0. Now with that in mind, we're going to talk about a couple other types of equations of a line. So I'm going to put this down here, get it out of the way. One type of equation of a line that I said we talked about before was the slope-intercept form of a line. That's y equals mx plus b. I love this form of a line because it gives me lots of information about the line without me having to do much work. Since whatever value is here is going to be the slope, I know the incline of the particular graph of the line, and this guy is going to be the y-intercept. I know where this graph hits the y-axis. And so if I had the equation y is equal to 2x plus 4, I know that the slope is 2 and that the y-intercept would be 4. So this automatically tells me that the graph hits the y-axis at 4. So that's why I absolutely love this one, because it tells me a lot of information. Another one that should be loved, but I don't love it as much just because I don't use it as much, but I'd probably love it more if I did, is the point slope form. Point slope form says, hey, if you do y minus a y sub 1, I'll explain what that is. Well, let me actually start off by explaining that. That's a better teacher. Okay, so if you have like a point and a slope, so if somebody says, hey, the slope of the line is this m and the point is x sub 1, y sub 1, I'm going to give you two bits of information about a line, this slope and this point. From this information, all you have to do is literally put it in this form and you'll be able to get the equation of the line. And so the equation of the line is really simple. You'll just do y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. Now this looks probably hauntingly familiar to what we talked about last week, or last time rather, last lesson, was y sub 1 minus y sub 2 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1 equaling m. And if I were to solve for y sub 2 minus y sub 1, say, I will be multiplying both sides by this denominator, which is x sub 2 minus x sub 1. If I do that on both sides, right, you'll see what pops out. What pops out is this point slope form of a line. So point slope form of a line is, I'll show you an example of using it real quick. If I said, for instance, if I said, oh, the slope of a line is 1/2 and the point that it passes through is 3, -5, then you would simply shove this information into this form and you'd have the equation of the line. So you'd be like y minus the y term. In this case, the y term is a -5. So y minus -5 is equal to m, which is the slope. Let's get my red pen back. 1/2 times the quantity of x minus the x term in this is going to be 3. So I have x minus 3. And this legit is an equation. This is an equation of the line. So this is another form. So we've got point slope form, slope intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And then, so this is easiest to use, but probably easiest to glean information from, right? This is really easy to use. If you got a point and a slope, you got the equation. And this one over here is our standard form that we want to keep in mind because it's really helpful for us to consider standard form, because oftentimes equations want to be in that form. All right, so I'm going to highlight these and I need you to have these memorized. We need to have those memorized if you don't already. Let's look at example 1. We're going to write an equation given a point, a slope, and a point. Sounds kind of familiar, sounds like something that we've done already, so this should not be too bad. Let's go ahead and check it out. Write an equation in slope-intercept form. So we have to keep the form in mind. We're looking for slope-intercept form. If you remember, that's y equals mx plus b form of a line that has a slope of this guy and a point here. Remember we had point slope form? Like we knew that point slope, we know that point slope is the cool one. Let me go back. Is the cool one that allows us to easily get an equation. But this equation needs to then be put in slope-intercept form. And I'm going to do that for you. So let's go ahead and look. So point slope, we remember that point slope is, not slop, but slope. Point slope is y minus y sub 1, the y term in the equation, times the slope, m, times x minus x sub 1. And now I'm just going to replace. So y minus this guy, 1, is equal to negative 3 over 2 times x minus this guy, which is a minus 4. And I kind of don't like that, so I'm going to make negative negative makes a plus. So my equation is y minus 1 is equal to negative 3 over 2. Unfortunately, they asked me for more. They said, hey, we want this in slope-intercept form. If they didn't, we would be cool beans. But you know what? Slope-intercept form isn't that far from this, right? So my goal, I'm going to put this in blue over here, is y is equal to mx plus b. We need to have it in that form when we're done. And so to manipulate this into that form, I got to do a couple things. One, I'm going to have to rock the distributive property, right? Because there's no parentheses in this form. And then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have to rid myself of this negative 1. So the first step, y minus 1 is equal to, distributive property tells me I've got 3 over 2x plus, when I multiply 3 times 4, I get a negative 12. Divide that by 2, I get a negative 6. So I end up with negative 3 over 2x plus a negative 6. Now I'm going to move this 1, right? Because I need to get y by itself. This form says have y by itself. So I'm going to do that. Y is equal to negative 3 over 2x. Adding these guys together, negative plus a positive, subtract, take the sign of the higher, is going to end up with a negative plus a negative 5, which I'm going to write as a minus 5, right? You guys get that that's the same thing. And so now I've done my due diligence and I have my answer in the form I'm supposed to, and I'm feeling good about myself. Yay, let's move on to the next example. Here in example 2, what we see is that we are going to write an equation given 2 points. So now this is different information. Last time we had a point and a slope, now we only have 2 points. Let's see how we can work this out. So in order to do this, what we'll do is think back to the last problem we did. It would be so awesome if we had like a slope. But we do. When you're given 2 points, you can easily find the slope. Remember, slope is equal to the change in y over the change in x. And so now we're feeling pretty awesome about ourselves. So x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Let's find the slope. We're going to say, well, change in y, that's going to be 5 minus 4, over change in x, which is negative 4 minus a minus 1. At this point, I have a 1 at the top, and at the denominator, I've got minus, This is really a plus. Negative 4 plus that is going to give me a negative 3. So this is the slope that I'm working with. So I've got a slope, but I've got 2 points. That's just better for me. Doesn't matter. If I have 2 points, I can choose which one I want. I'm going to ultimately have the same equation that is valued. So this says write the equation of a line passing through points. Guess what I'm going to use? I'm going to use point slope form because that's awesome and easy. So point slope form tells me that I have this x minus x sub 1. And now let me rock it out. I've got y minus the y term. Let's use this first one. I'm going to just use this equation, this point. Doesn't matter which point, but I'm going to choose this one. Y minus a minus 4, y minus 4 is what I'm going to have, times the slope, negative 1 over 3, or negative 1/3, the whole thing is negative, times x minus, or actually it's going to be minus a negative 1, so I'm going to rock it as a plus 1. And I'm actually done. If I wanted to put it in slope-intercept form because it's my best friend and I love it to death, then I could, but for kicks and giggles, I don't really have to do that because they only ask me, or I'm only asked to put it in an equation of a line, and this is a true equation of a line. So I'm good. I'm not going to do any more. All right, here we have, big problem, example 3. We're going to write an equation for a real-world situation. Here we have Eric Fu, who is paid a daily salary plus commission. So every day he is paid a salary, the given money that he knows he's going to get just for showing up at work, and then he's paid a commission. Commission, I hope you know. If you don't, I'm going to just remind you. A commission is the amount of money that you make based on the things that you sell. So commissions are usually percentage driven. Like if you sell whatever amount you sell, you get maybe 1% or 2% or 5% or 10% of the thing you sold. So if you've ever gone into a grocery store, not a grocery store, but usually a clothing store, and somebody says, "Can I help you? Let me know if you need any help. My name is Sarah," and they want to follow you around a little bit, oftentimes they are being helpful, which is really kind, but they are also going to make commission off of the sales, the things that you buy. So commission. So he makes two things. So here's some information we're given. When his sales are $1,000, he makes $100. When his sales are a little higher, $1,400, he makes $120. What? First thing we're going to do is, not what, first thing we're going to do is we're going to write an equation and to model this situation. So what you have to realize sometimes is that when you're given information that's related, here I have this number depends on this, and this number depends on this, meaning the amount that he takes home is dependent on his sales. The amount that he takes home is dependent on his sales. I see that I have a dependent and independent variable. The independent variable is this first thing, this 1,000. So that goes first. Remember, x is the independent variable and y is the dependent variable. So $1,000 leads to $100, or $1,400 leads to $120. So here I have 2 points. Can I model a situation? This is a linear equation. Can I find the equation of this line that I'm working with? Of course I can. I've got 2 points and we just did it. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The 2 points that I have are here, so let's find the slope. Slope is change in y over change in x. Let's call this point number 2, and let's call this point number 1. Therefore, this is x, this is y2. So I've got 120 minus y1, 100, over 1,400 minus 1,000. So I get as my result 20 over 400. And that can be reduced nicely to, oh golly, 2 over 40 or 1 over 20. So I got 1/20th as my slope. So now I'm going to find the equation. So I can use any point. I'm going to use the first point that's given. Y minus 100 is equal to 1 over 20 times x, and this is me using point slope form, x minus 1,000. Okay, I'm going to simplify this a little bit because sometimes it really is nice to have y equals mx plus b form, and I think this is one of those examples where it will be, and that's just old people knowing stuff before young people do. So just walk with me on this one. So if I'm going to work that out, I'm going to get 1 over 20x minus, I'm distributing this, 1 over 20x minus 20 goes into that 50. Right, 20 goes into 1,050 is equal to y minus 100. Then when I throw the 100 on the other side, I get y is equal to, please walk with me, I know this is looking really terribly sloppy, 1 over 20x plus 50. Why is it plus 50? Because I'm going to add 100 over here, add 100 over here, and squeak by and get this. So my equation, or my model for the equation, is y is equal to 1 over 20 x plus 50. And I've highlighted that down here. All right, so what are Eric's daily salary and commission rate? So he gets a daily salary, the amount of money he gets for just showing up, and then he gets a commission rate based on how much money he makes in his sales. So he gets his commission rate based on X. So for every X dollar he makes, he's going to make a certain amount. And as you can see over here, this slope is really his commission rate, and this 50 back here is just the amount of money he gets for showing up at work that day, whether he makes a sale or not. And so that's his salary. So we can tell a lot from the information on in your equation. This 1 over 20 can be written as 0.05, which we recognize as 5%. So that's this. And then the 50 is $50. So anyway, so what we get is that his commission is $50. No, it's not. His salary is $50. Let me get rid of that one. His salary is $50. That's located nicely. And his commission rate is 5%. So he makes 5% on every sale that he makes. And we can see that through the equation. How much would he make in a day if Eric's sales were $2,000? Well, once we create an equation like we have, we actually have